The sharp crack of a flawless shot reverberated through the pinnacle marksman society, met with a cascade of cheers from affluent spectators clad in bespoke tactical attire. Caspian Warwick lowered his custom-built Winchester, a sly grin spreading across his chiseled, sun-kissed face as the target revealed yet another perfect hit. This was his domain, a realm where wealth, influence, and precision formed an unbreakable divide between the privileged and the ordinary. If you've ever been overlooked or dismissed as insignificant, you'll want to linger for what unfolded next, the moment that shifted everything. At the nation's most exclusive shooting range, Nora Caspian stood by the entrance, gripping her weathered canvas satchel, her modest gray sweater and thrift store slacks setting her apart like a wildflower in a manicured orchid display. At 37, she was neither youthful enough to draw admiring glances nor accomplished enough to earn deference in this elite enclave. The concierge, a poised woman with sleek auburn curls and a polished smile, glanced up briefly before looking away, as if Nora were a fleeting inconvenience. "Excuse me," Nora said quietly. "I'd like to sign up for today's open practice." The concierge's eyes flicked up again, scanning Nora from her practical loafers to her unadorned braid. "Members only," she replied with a curt edge. Nora exhaled slowly, producing a creased envelope. "I have a guest pass. It was a gift." Across the room, Caspian caught sight of the newcomer. At 44, he was at the zenith of his career. Six-time national champion, Olympic silver medalist, and the ambassador for Winchester's Elite Series. His family's shipping empire had secured him world-class coaching from youth, with his innate skill sealing his dominance. "Well now," Caspian drawled, his voice carrying. "Looks like someone got lost en route to a flea market." His entourage chuckled on cue, amplifying the spotlight on Nora, who was heading to the novice range, her gaze fixed downward. Victoria Langley, the society's director and a retired sharpshooter, furrowed her brow at Caspian's jab, but held her tongue. Nora settled at the far end of the novice range. She set her satchel on the ledge and carefully unwrapped a linen bundle, revealing a standard Beretta 92, functional, but worlds apart from the bespoke firearms of the society's elite. Caspian and his cronies drifted closer, their curiosity piqued by the prospect of amusement. $10 says she misses the target entirely, one quipped. Caspian snorted. "Make it 10 grand. I'd wager she's never touched a gun." He strolled to Nora's station. "Pardon me, madam," he said, his mock courtesy laced with disdain. "Are you certain you're in the right place? This isn't a book club." Nora looked up, her amber eyes locking onto Caspian's icy gray ones, with a calm that briefly unsettled him. "I'm just here to shoot," she said evenly. Caspian recovered with a smirk. "Shoot, darling. This is for real marksmen. 10 grand says you can't hit the bullseye at 50 yards. Nora's face remained impassive, though a spark glinted in her gaze. "I don't have that kind of money," she replied. Caspian's grin widened. "If, by some fluke, you make the shot, I pay. If you miss, you leave and never return. Deal?" Victoria had approached during the exchange, her concern evident. "Mr. Warwick, perhaps we should let our guest practice undisturbed." Caspian dismissed her with a wave. "Stay out of this, Victoria. It's just a friendly bet." Nora's eyes flicked to her left hand, where a plain silver ring gleamed. She turned it once, a subtle motion only the keenest observer might notice. "Fine," she said softly. Caspian's brows lifted in surprise before settling into a smug grin. "Splendid. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for a spectacle." No one noticed Nora's posture shift as she lifted her Beretta, her frame aligning, shoulders easing, feet settling into a textbook stance. No one recognized the expert grip or the measured breaths, and no one knew the silver ring once belonged to one of Delta Force's most fabled snipers. 3 years prior, Nora had stood beneath a somber March sky, the sharp report of the Honor Guard's rifles piercing the silence of Arlington National Cemetery. The folded flag pressed against her chest felt like a leaden weight as she watched her husband's casket descend. Chief Warrant Officer Elias Caspian had served for 16 years, his unparalleled marksmanship earning him commendations and the hushed moniker Spectre among his unit. The official report cited a training accident during a covert operation. Nora knew the truth was buried in classified files. They'd met in Portland, Maine, where Elias was visiting a recovering teammate. Nora, then a payroll clerk, lived a life as orderly as the ledgers she balanced. Their chance encounter at a harborside cafe stretched from a spilled coffee into hours of conversation. 6 months later, they wed in a quiet ceremony with a handful of friends and Elias's watchful comrades. Life as a Special Forces spouse taught Nora to navigate absence and ambiguity. Elias would vanish for months, returning with scars he wouldn't discuss and burdens he couldn't voice. "I wish I could share it all," he'd murmur, brushing her jaw with a weathered hand. "But you're why I make it back." During one prolonged stateside stint, after a mission that left Elias with a fractured ankle, he took Nora to a range. "If I'm gone so often," he said, adjusting her grip, "I need to know you're safe." What started as precaution became a bridge into his world. Elias was a meticulous teacher, and Nora, a prodigy. "You're a natural," he'd said after her first bullseye. "You've got the trifecta: steady hands, eagle eyes, and ice in your veins." Over 3 years, whenever Elias was home, they trained together. He taught her stance, breath control, sight picture, and trigger finesse. "Shooting isn't about force," he'd say. "It's about mastering your body, your breath, your fear." Nora soaked up every lesson, finding solace in the ritual. Those range days were sacred, wordless bonds forged in focus. Occasionally, Elias's teammates joined. One, Lucas Kane, remarking, "Spectre never stops bragging about you, says you outshoot half his trainees." Their last session was 3 days before Elias's final mission. He'd been subdued, watching Nora more than shooting. "Promise me," he said, voice low, "you'll keep training even if I'm not here." Nora nodded, unaware of the weight behind his words. After the funeral, Nora couldn't face a range. Elias's firearms stayed locked away. She relocated to Philadelphia for a fresh start, taking a job at a mid-tier accounting firm where her past as a soldier's widow remained private. Then, a week ago, a package arrived from Lucas Kane, a guest pass to the Pinnacle Marksman Society, and a note. "Elias would want you to honor your promise. 3 years is long enough to mourn alone. Step back into the light, Nora." Now, standing in the society with Caspian's challenge ringing, Nora felt a flicker of her former self, the woman unbowed by loss. As she raised her beretta, instinct took over. The world shrank to her, the gun and the target. She inhaled, paused, exhaled halfway, and fired. The shot rang clear, the target's retrieval system whirring loudly in the stunned silence. Caspian's smirk wavered as he noted Nora's flawless form. The target arrived, revealing a perfect bullseye. The hush was deafening, Caspian's click grappling with the impossible. Nora set the beretta down, her face unreadable. Caspian grabbed the target, inspecting it. "Beginner's luck," he declared, voice tight. "Anyone can fluke once." Victoria stepped forward, her composure giving way to awe. "That was extraordinary, Ms. Caspian, Nora Caspian," Nora offered quietly. Victoria smiled, part apology, part admiration. "Ms. Caspian, perhaps you'd like to try our advanced range." Before Nora could reply, Caspian cut in. "Hold on. One fluke doesn't make her a master. Let's see her do it again with real stakes." Murmurs rippled through the onlookers. 50,000, Caspian announced, pulling out his checkbook. 3 bullseyes at 75 yards consecutively. Miss one, you admit you cheated and leave. Governor Hensley laid a restraining hand on Caspian's arm. "Caspian, maybe ease off." Caspian shrugged him off. "What's wrong? Scared her little trick won't hold." Nora considered walking away. She'd come to honor Elias, not spark a circus, but Caspian's smug dismissal stirred a fire, a stand against every slight she'd endured. "I'll take it," she said softly. "One condition: if I win, The 50,000 goes to the Heroes Resilience Fund. Caspian paused, then nodded. Fine, you won't win. As Nora moved to the 75-yard line, Victoria approached. Ms. Caspian, you should know Caspian holds the society record at this range. No one's topped him in 6 years. Nora nodded, grateful. Thank you, Ms. Langley. I'll manage. Victoria studied her, intrigued by the quiet assurance belying Nora's plain appearance. Caspian played to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, witness either the greatest fluke in marksmanship or a humiliating flop. 3 bullseyes at 75 yards with a basic pistol, impossible for a novice. Nora loaded her magazines deliberately, Elias's words echoing. When the heat's on, trust your training. Your body remembers what your mind might forget. The range fell silent, all eyes on the showdown. For her first shot, Nora took extra time, adjusting for distance. The shot landed dead center. Caspian's jaw clenched. The second shot followed swiftly, another bullseye. Before the third, Nora twisted her ring, feeling Elias beside her. The final shot pierced the air and the target's heart. Caspian's face paled, shock warring with rage. Victoria displayed the targets, undeniable proof of 3 perfect shots. Remarkable, Ms. Caspian, she said, admiration clear. Caspian snatched the targets, desperation rising. This is absurd, he hissed. Nobody walks in and shoots like that. She's rigged it. Nora's voice was calm but firm. We had a deal, Mr. Warwick. A deal with a fraud, Caspian snapped. I'm not paying 50 grand for a scam. Victoria intervened. Mr. Warwick, Ms. Caspian's shots were verified by dozens, including Governor Hensley. They're legitimate. Caspian turned on her, jabbing a finger. Know your role, Victoria. 1 call to the board, and you're done. The threat silenced Victoria, but her gaze hardened. Nora watched, resolute. If you're accusing me of cheating, she said evenly, let's discuss this privately. Caspian misread her intent. Private, so you can dodge accountability? No, we settle this here. I propose a true test. 1 week from now, a formal match. Me against our mystery shooter. 10 stations, varied ranges, society-supplied gear for fairness. Nora sensed the escalation, tempted to retreat to her quiet life. But a stronger instinct held firm. I accept, she said quietly. Same terms. If I win, 50,000 to the Heroes Resilience Fund. Caspian's smile was cold. Deal. And when I win, you confess your trick. As the crowd dispersed, Victoria approached Nora. That was either bold or reckless, she said. Caspian doesn't lose well, and he holds sway here. Nora nodded, adrenaline ebbing. I didn't want trouble. Just practice. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Yet you shoot like a pro. Who are you, Nora Caspian? Nora gathered her things. Just someone keeping a vow, she murmured. Unbeknownst to Nora, Caspian was already on his phone, ordering his aide to unearth everything about Nora Caspian, no matter the cost. His voice trembled, not just with anger, but with fear. He'd glimpsed something in Nora's technique, a military precision that couldn't be faked. Word of the clash spread swiftly through Philadelphia's elite. By nightfall, Caspian Warwick was flooded with texts from allies, rivals, and reporters, hungry for details on the enigmatic woman who'd rattled his throne. In his skyscraper loft overlooking the Schuylkill River, he swirled rare bourbon in a crystal glass, his usual post-triumph ritual, now a salve for rattled nerves. His partner, Elise Morrow, scrolled her tablet, tracking the online buzz with growing unease. They're dubbing her the Shadow Sniper, Elise said. Someone uploaded a grainy clip of her final shot. It's gone viral. Caspian drained his drink. One lucky day doesn't make a sniper. Next week, she'll be exposed. Elise's tone turned grave. Caspian, those weren't luck. I've seen you compete for years. She's exceptional. His phone's sharp ring cut through. Recognizing his investigator's number, Caspian sat up. Tell me you've got something, he demanded. The voice was apologetic. Not much, Mr. Warwick. Nora Caspian, 37, senior clerk at Horizon Accounts. Moved to Philadelphia from Norfolk 3 years ago. Clean record, low profile, No social media, no shooting history. Caspian's irritation flared. Impossible. No one shoots like that without training. Dig deeper. Pacing his loft, Caspian muttered, "Who is she?" "Where did she learn that?" Elise set her tablet down, wary. "Caspian, maybe let this go. Pay the charity. Call it a bad day." He whirled on her, eyes blazing. "This isn't about money, it's my legacy." Across town, Nora sat at her dining table, staring at her phone. Lucas Kane had called 4 times since the range. The military shooting community was tight-knit, especially among Spec Ops veterans. Brewing chamomile tea, Nora stepped onto her tiny balcony, replaying the day. Part of her regretted accepting Caspian's challenge. The spotlight felt invasive. Yet another part felt alive, as if a buried ember had reignited. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hesitating, she answered, "Ms. Caspian, this is Victoria Langley from the Pinnacle Society." Nora stiffened. "Ms. Langley, what can I do for you?" Victoria's tone was urgent. "I shouldn't be calling, but Caspian's having people dig into your past. He's convinced you cheated." Nora sighed, unsurprised. "Thank you for the heads up, Ms. Langley. I've got nothing to hide." Victoria pressed on, quieter. "Look, I don't know your story or how you shoot like that, but Caspian's family owns half of Philadelphia. If he feels cornered, he can make life hard." Nora, seasoned by years as a military spouse, knew the difference between bluster and danger. "I'll be cautious," she promised, "but I'll honor our deal." After the call, Nora opened a cedar box holding Elias's medals, letters, and their wedding photo. Beneath the funeral flag lay his training log, chronicling missions and their range sessions. She skimmed it, finding his neat script. Nora, 50 yards, 9 out of 10 bullseyes. Innate gift, surpasses most operators. The next morning, Nora called in sick for the first time in years. Instead of her office, she drove to a remote public range, far from the society's opulence. For 9 hours, she trained, each shot a dialogue with Elias's memory, a vow kept, a bond unbroken by death. That evening, a text from Victoria arrived. Caspian pushing rule changes for match. Now 10 firearms, varied ranges, board approved. Nora grasped the tactic. Caspian was tilting the field to exploit his versatility where she might falter. Her reply was brief. "Thanks for the update. No changes needed." In his loft, Caspian smirked at the news. "Perfect," he told Elise. 10 stations, 10 firearms. She can't match my breadth." Elise set her wine down. "And if she does?" His smile was icy. "She won't, but if she gets close, I've got a backup plan." The day before the match, Lucas Kane showed up at Nora's door, unannounced. "You don't return calls?" he teased, concern softening his gruff tone. Nora welcomed him in, relieved by familiarity. "Been occupied," she said. Lucas eyed the shooting manuals strewn across her table. "So I hear. The whole community's buzzing about you and Warwick." They sat at her table. "Elias would be proud," Lucas said. "Not just of your shooting, but of you stepping out again." Nora's eyes stung with sudden tears. "I didn't plan this, Lucas." He nodded. "The best fights never are. But sometimes they're what we need." He squeezed her hand. "You're not alone tomorrow. I've called in some friends for the crowd." At the door, he paused. "Watch Warwick. Guys like him, with his wealth and pull, don't handle defeat well. Elias would tell you to guard your back." Nora smiled faintly. "I will. And Lucas, thanks for the pass, for everything." His grin was warm. "Just honoring a brother's wish." Caspian's probe into Nora Caspian began as wounded pride but morphed into an obsession dwarfing his match prep. Initial checks yielded nothing. No record, no shooting history, not even a parking ticket. On paper, Nora was a nobody. "Focus on Norfolk," Caspian told his investigator. "She lived there before Philly. Check ranges, trainers, anyone who knew her, and that ring she keeps touching, find out about her husband." The investigator's tone stayed neutral despite Caspian's urgency. "I'll dig, Mr. Warwick, but Virginia records—" "I don't care," Caspian snapped. "The match is in 2 days. Get me something." The breakthrough came that night as Caspian studied footage of Nora's form. His phone rang. His investigator. "Norfolk was the key, Mr. Warwick. Nora Caspian is the widow of Chief Warrant Officer Elias Caspian, Delta Force, KIA 3 years ago. Elite sniper, highly decorated. Sources say he trained his wife extensively. One contact recalled him saying she had untapped brilliance." Caspian's blood ran cold. "A Delta sniper." "Confirmed," the investigator said. "Elias was called Spectre for hitting impossible shots. Held unofficial records in Spec Ops." Caspian hung up, the reality sinking in. Nora wasn't a fluke or a fraud. She was the disciple of a legend. Across town, Nora, unaware of Caspian's findings, honed her prep. On Thursday, Victoria called again. "Ms. Caspian, another update. Caspian's pushed a scoring change. Each station's weighted by difficulty, with the final one, 30% of the total." Nora caught the ploy. "Let me guess. The final station's a weapon Caspian masters." Victoria's pause confirmed it. "A custom Barrett MRAD, a precision rifle Caspian's trained with exclusively. Only a handful exist in civilian hands." Nora's mind raced. She was adept with pistols, but less seasoned with specialized rifles. The next morning, Nora drove to a private range outside Philly, securing access to practice with long-range rifles. In the lot, a black SUV with federal plates waited. A lean man with a soldier's posture leaned against it. "Mrs. Caspian, Major Callahan, ex-Delta. I served with Elias in Kabul. 15. Nora didn't recognize him. "Major, Elias never mentioned you." Callahan's face stayed stoic. "Different units, ma'am, but we all knew Spectre's legend." He nodded to the range. "Heard you could use tips on the Barrett MRAD. I know it well." For 5 hours, Callahan coached Nora on the rifle's nuances. "Elias built a solid foundation with pistols," he noted as her shots tightened. "You've got his calm and control. This is just an extension. Trust your instincts." By afternoon, Nora was nailing distant targets. As they wrapped up, Callahan handed her a slim journal. Elias's windage and range notes, his own formulas. Could help tomorrow. Nora took it reverently. "Why help me, Major?" "You don't know me." His gaze softened. "When we lose a brother, we protect what he cherished. Elias raved about your skill, your steady hands." Nora realized her personal challenge had grown into a symbol, privilege versus grit, Caspian's ostentation against Elias's quiet honor. That evening, Caspian received final confirmation of Nora's ties to Spectre. Each detail, Elias's record, his Spec Ops renown, his death in a Black Op, chipped at Caspian's bravado. He poured another bourbon, ignoring Elisa's worried look. "It changes nothing," he insisted. "Skill beats sob stories." Elisa's voice was sharp. "Caspian, cancel it. Pay the charity. This is spiraling." He slammed his glass down. "Cancel and admit I'm scared? No, tomorrow goes as planned." He dialed a contact. "It's Caspian. Everything set for tomorrow?" The brief exchange ended, and he turned to Elisa's unreadable stare. "What was that?" she asked. His smile was hollow. "Just ensuring fairness, love." On match day, the Pinnacle Society hummed with energy. The board had opened the event to the public, turning a private duel into a grand spectacle. Victoria oversaw setup, noting subtle tweaks to the gear, adjustments favoring someone intimately familiar with them. Nora arrived in jeans and a charcoal shirt, carrying a duffel with Elias's journal. Victoria pulled her aside. "Equipment checks done. There are inconsistencies. Nothing I can flag, but they favor Caspian." Nora nodded. "Thank you." Caspian swept in with sponsors and fanfare, his smile brittle as he approached Nora. "Ms. Caspian, I hope you're ready. The spotlight can crush those unused to it. No shame in bowing out." Nora held his gaze. "I'll cope, Mr. Warwick. My husband taught me about pressure." The arena was a spectacle, with screens tracking scores and 3 range masters officiating. Nora spotted Lucas and other military figures in the crowd, their presence steadying her. Through early stations, Caspian's polish shone, crisp, practiced. Nora's style was understated, efficient. her stillness between shots betraying rigorous training. At the fifth station, Nora detected the issue. A Glock's trigger was slightly off. Recalling Elias's mantra, adapt and overcome, she adjusted and matched Caspian's score. As stations progressed, Caspian dominated competition-grade weapons, but Nora's consistency, especially with military arms, closed the gap. By the eighth, their scores were nearly even. The crowd, initially Caspian's, began cheering Nora's quiet prowess. Before the ninth, Caspian leaned in. "Impressive, Mrs. Caspian. Spector's methods are unmistakable. I did my research." Nora paused, then replied, "Then you know he prized honor above all, Mr. Warwick. Something to ponder." The ninth station tied their scores. The final station, the Barrett MRAD, would decide it all. Nora noted tweaks to the scope and stock but consulted Elias's journal instead of protesting. Caspian shot first, landing 9 of 10 in the tightest rings. "Not everyone's built for the big stage," he taunted. Nora felt a serene focus, Elias's mission calm enveloping her. She adjusted for the sabotage using his formulas. Her first shots were flawless. By the seventh, all bullseyes, the crowd was rapt. As she lined up her last shot, a glint flashed across her sight, a distraction from Caspian's camp. She steadied, fired, and hit the 10th bullseye, eclipsing Caspian's score. The crowd roared, a standing ovation erupting. Final results: Nora Caspian first, Caspian Warwick second, Victoria announced. Caspian's veneer cracked, fury flashing as he gave a curt handshake. "This isn't done," he hissed. Nora's reply was cool. "Today it is, and you owe 50,000 to the Heroes Fund." Caspian's composure shattered. "You think this proves anything? A soldier's widow with a lucky streak outdoing my legacy? This was a stunt." Victoria stepped in, tablet raised. "The gear was tampered with, Mr. Warwick, not in Ms. Caspian's favor. Security footage caught your technician." The crowd gasped. Nora's triumph now heroic against sabotage. Caspian stood stunned, his career teetering. By morning, clips of Nora's flawless finale and Caspian's outburst dominated media, a niche contest now a saga of privilege versus perseverance. Nora ignored the flood of reporter calls, reaching only Lucas. "It's bigger than I planned. What now?" "Your call," Lucas said. "Stay private or push for justice." Nora paused. "Caspian hasn't paid, and the tampering's fraud. There's accountability." At Caspian's loft, his PR team scrambled. "Admit a mistake, donate, check into rehab," his advisor urged. Caspian balked. "Apologize? She had military training. That's the real cheat." Police arrived. "Caspian Warwick, we need you for questioning on fraud and tampering allegations, tied to gaming law violations." Meanwhile, Nora met Colonel Marcus Vaughn, Heroes Fund Director. "Our board, including society members, is moving to strip Warwick's titles," he said, then offered, "We're launching a veteran marksmanship program for therapy. We'd love you to lead it." Days later, Caspian's lawyers proposed a settlement: $100,000 to the fund, a public apology, and a private meeting. In a stark conference room, Caspian, subdued in a suit, spoke. "Mrs. Caspian, I'm sorry. I built my life on being untouchable. Your skill. It shook me. I acted shamefully." Nora weighed his words. "Mr. Warwick, I didn't shoot to unsettle you. I honored my husband. Your actions betrayed the sport you claim to love and the charity you pledged to." Caspian nodded, chastened. "Hence the double donation and my 3-year ban." They signed the deal. As they parted, Caspian offered his hand. "You're the best I've faced. Elias trained a marvel." Nora shook briefly. "He'd say I was already capable. A teacher just reveals what's within." Weeks later, Nora stood at the Heroes Fund's new range, funded by Caspian's gift. Her first class, 7 veterans, scarred but resolute. "I'm Nora Caspian," she began, voice steady. "Not a soldier or a star, just someone who learned the steadiest hands often come from the greatest trials." 6 months later, at the fund's gala, Nora spoke. "A year ago, I stepped into a range to keep a vow to my late husband. I thought I'd reclaim a skill and fade back to silence. Instead, a challenge led to this program and our community. When the Elias Spector Caspian Marksmanship Scholarship was unveiled for veterans training as instructors, Nora's eyes welled. As its first recipient, a wounded Marine, accepted, Nora twisted her ring one last time. "For you, Elias, for all you showed me." Her truest victory wasn't toppling a champion who scorned her, but rediscovering her place in the world, honoring past and future. For those who followed Nora's path, from being invisible at the Pinnacle Society to leading a movement, the lesson was stark. Never dismiss the quiet ones. Behind their reserve might burn a resolve tempered by hardship, skills sharpened by devotion, and principles rooted in trials few can fathom. And if you're ever sidelined or underestimated, recall Nora Caspian's arc from unseen to indispensable, turning a moment of disdain into a legacy of dignity, one perfect shot at a time.